And here it says, then he, Jesus, taught them many things by parables, and said to them in his teaching, listen, behold. In the Greek, this saying, listen, behold, is a double imperative, which literally means, hey, pay attention. I mean, it would be like the football coach when a player misses a block and the coach runs up to him and grabs him by the shoulder pads and says, hey, pay attention. That's your guy. That's what Jesus was doing here. He was saying, guys, you want to listen to this. If you're really serious about meeting and understanding God's Messiah, then you better pay attention to me and what I'm saying here, because this is important. And my thought is, if it was important for them then, it may be important for us now. And he says, a sower went out to sow. And so for the purpose of our discussion today, Jesus is talking about himself as a sower. Here Jesus is sowing and planting. He's imparting. He's disseminating some type of seed, something that reproduces. He's saying the sower went out to have reproduction, to have increase, to have multiplication. Remember, we talked about how God is the God of multiplication. It was his command to mankind, be fruitful and multiply. Drop down with me to verse 4. Let's read verses 4 through 7. And it happened. You know, as a good sower, and as good a sower as God is, it happened that not all of the seed became productive. I want you to see this. This caught my attention at one time. God is the best sower that there is in the world. And yet he's saying that, hey, the way I sowed seed, I gave man free will, knowing that it may not all hit the perfect environment for growth. So the sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside. And it says, and the birds of the air came in and devoured it. Some fell on stony ground where it did not have much earth, and immediately it sprang up. But because it had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, it was scorched. And because it had no root, it withered away. And some seed fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no crop. See, in each of these scenarios, the seed that was sown produced very little or no return on what was invested. If we just stopped here, we would do ourselves a disservice if we go on. If we don't stop here, I think that it's important that we do and look here, because we should endeavor to find out why something is not producing in our life. So many times we just take it as, oh, that's the way it's going to be. So many times when something doesn't produce for us, we just say, oh, it wasn't God's will. But I think we should stop here and try to endeavor and find out why there was not a harvest, why it yielded no crop. Could you imagine a farmer who planted seed? It produced no crop, and he just said, well, I guess that's the way it is. We'll just do it again next year. I mean, I know some of you guys are from farm country. I mean, that would be crazy. No, what's a farmer going to do? Farmer's going to be out and they're going to have the soil tested. They're going to find out if it's nutrient rich, if there's some kind of organism in the soil, if there's something that is prohibited, maybe the seeds you planted is not best suited in the soil, and you've got to find some other crop to put in here. You want to find what is going on. See, most all lack, and the failed production is a lack. There was a lack of a harvest. Most all lack, and maybe even all of all lack, or unfruitfulness, can be tracked back to this thing. Trace the lack back to find where there is slack. Trace the lack back to find out where there's slack. Proverbs 10:4. He who deals with a slack hand makes to want or becomes poor. But he who has a diligent hand makes rich.